Hey, friendo, Steve here.
And Larson.
And it's time for our Dark Side of the Ring Season 6 reviews to kick off this season. We've got Hell in a Cell, which we're going to talk about today. Ludwig Borga Scumbag, which we're going to talk about on the next episode. And so it's a loaded season. We did like a preview, like a breakdown of the episodes that, were presented in terms of the lineup for this season. We've done that already, but now we get to actually sit and watch the episodes, and they're starting off with Hell in a Cell. I feel like, generally speaking, the dudes like to start things off in a way that might appeal more to the casual fan, maybe in a way, I'm not going to necessarily say lapsed, but certainly when you and I go out and about, and we tell people this is what we do if that conversation kicks up. Oftentimes they'll be like, oh, man, I used to watch all the time. And I feel like that's what these are kind of for.
So
season premieres.
I thought that as well. And then I look back at the previous season premieres. So season 1 kicked off with the Macho Man Miss Elizabeth episode.
Yeah.
Season 2, two-part Benoit premiere. Season 3 was a two-part Brian Pillman one. But it's interesting, the 5th episode about the Warrior, you'd think that would potentially appeal more to lapsed fans.
Yeah.
Season 4, the premiere was about Chris Candido and Cammy.
Yeah.
And there's probably a couple more in here. I would think like Bash of the Beach 2000 might appeal more to lapsed fan than maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Season 4 didn't have a lot of like, oh, this will be for a lapsed fan. Maybe Junkyard Dog. Season 5 is interesting. It started with John Tenta.
Yeah.
But then last season there wasn't. I mean, maybe you could have, but I understand why they would have wanted to conclude with the Black Saturday episode.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's season 6. Let's try to rope some people in. So let's start off broad. That's all I can think.
That could be. And I given Mick Foley's history with the show, he narrated at least the first season, but interviewed tons of time before it. When I first saw this episode of my DVR, I was like, "Oh, this must be a rerun that got recorded," because I would have swore they did an episode already on Mick Foley. Not the case. And as we talked about privately, I don't know if we mentioned any of the show. Going into this, we were not exactly sure how much new would be involved in this, because I'm sure between his books, other people's books, interviews, this is ground that's been well covered. In fact, over the course of the hour of this episode, there's exactly one thing that I just wasn't aware of, and it might very well be well known. It was just new to me, and it was Terry Funk's idea, jokingly, for them to start the match at the top of the cage and for Foley to get thrown off.
Yeah.
But like the episode seemed to start off with, for sure, kind of the thesis for this particular episode, and it'd be interesting to see if this is a theme that carries over for the rest of the season. It's literally the first thing Mick Foley says, which is everyone who gets into wrestling is looking for something they find missing in their own lives. And for him, he talks about how he was teased and picked on when he was younger. He said, for me, it was an overwhelming need to be liked. So they take this line and parlay it into a story about Mick Foley putting his body on the line over the course of his career to get validation from the crowd.
Yeah.
And the cost that he is paying now for everything he did.
They bookend it with him continuing on with his life, trying to get validation in the form of one-man show.
Yeah.
His spoken word stuff.
Yep.
Wanting to get that pop from the crowd, and how it can help stimulate a brain that has probably suffered a ton of damage. We know they showed CT scans in the episode.
Yeah.
That suffered plenty of damage.
Yeah.
Dude, from the standpoint of you and I being in the unique situation we are relative to other fans or other viewers of Dark Side of the Ring, on one hand, of course, we watched this live, I believe, together at your house, if I'm not
my
mistaken.
parents' house,
Yeah. And then through the years, of course, we have, because it is one of the most infamous matches in WWE history, we have talked about it a lot. I'm almost positive probably within the context. Well, definitely, I know you and I both read Foley's first book. I know, obviously, WWF has also produced Mick Foley documentaries where they've talked about this pretty exhaustively. So, yeah, I went into this as opposed to like the Ludwig Borga episode where I don't really know anything about this guy until I didn't know anything about him until the Dark Side lineup was released. And I was like, okay, I know the name Ludwig Borga, but what's his deal? And then it's like, oh, big old Nazi. Holy shit. Okay. But like this is conversely on the complete other end of the spectrum. We know a lot about this match. We watched it over again. We've revisited it a million times. To the point where it's almost become at this point, like for a spell, it seemed like it was overrated. And then it sort of went so overrated that it became underrated again. And then you revisit this and it's like, God damn, like it gave me a renewed interest. I was not bored by this episode, knowing the story as well as I do.
No, I mean, Mick Foley is a captivating personality. He's a great storyteller. So having him, kind of relaying the story of how the match began and was put together and all that, yeah, it kept you engaged for sure.
It did, yeah. And, Cornette there, who's just a fantastic storyteller. Also... Al Snow, again, really good storyteller. So they added a lot to this, and they were able to even to get, and I don't know if this was specific to the episode or if they pulled this from somewhere else, but it was voice of the Undertaker. They got the Undertaker seemingly on the phone, and I feel like it was probably for the episode because usually I think they will like say, this is an interview from 2003 or whatever. This is his voice from this year. And so it feels like they probably got him on the phone and had him talk about it a little bit. But yeah, it's really, really well put together. Like you said, Foley is just such a magnetic, captivating personality. And I think one thing that you don't fully realize that they illustrated pretty well in this episode was the ascent of Mick Foley within the company. How when they brought him in, McMahon was like, I'll put a mask on him. Nobody's going to care about this guy. I don't even know who he is. And they bring him in, and Foley basically proves himself to Vince. Hey, this act can be a draw. And at the time of Hell in a Cell, Foley was looking for that big thing to kind of give his character a boost. And they found it at Hell in a Cell because this is an opportunity to show what my career has been about and to prove that it can be a draw. It could be the thing that sells tickets that can make a moment. And, as they illustrated in the episode, 6 months later, he was made champion. We all know how much Vince loved Mick Foley after that. So that was kind of interesting as well when you place it within the historical context of Mick Foley's career.
Yeah, and this is a quote that I'd heard before, but afterwards, when Foley comes back through the curtain after Hell in a Cell, where Vince goes up to him and says, "Thank you for everything you've done for my company tonight. Don't ever do it again." I'm paraphrasing, but that's pretty much what he said. Yeah. But then they show countless other instances where Foley puts his body on the line. The I Quit match from Rumble '99 and a ton others. And Foley talks about how. It was hard for him to walk away because he was kind of somewhat similar to the Undertaker, seemingly from Last Ride, where they want to go out in a high point. That seemed to be Undertaker's motivation for coming back. Was he thought he'd had his last match, not satisfied with it. I'm gonna do something else, not satisfied with it. And with Foley, it kind of seemed the same thing. Although it seemed like a lot of his matches. Post his first retirement after Mania 2000. That was supposed to be his last match, I think.
Yeah, it was.
But he had that match with Edge at WrestleMania.
Mania 2000, he had already retired. They brought him back for that.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it was tough to see his wife and kids recount watching his wife, specifically Hell in a Cell, because he told her about the spot getting thrown off the cage.
Yeah.
But seeing as the spot where he went through the cage was not intended, she thought that he had lied to her about that.
Yeah.
And then it was tough seeing his daughter talk about the I Quit match at Royal Rumble. She said, I don't remember anything about it. And of course, there's footage of and they used it for this, of his wife and kids being there for the I Quit match in Beyond the Mat.
Yeah.
And
yeah, dude, the I Quit match, that was so egregiously wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It really was. Like, I don't know. I understand when you're a young dude like The Rock and you're trying to make a name and you want it, and it's like, oh, this guy's willing to go. But that was so infuriating to go back and revisit how just the absolute taking of liberties. Mm-hmm. It's legitimately disgusting. It really is. The funny thing about Hell in a Cell is that it starts off with a big stunt that Foley was very prepared, willing to do, understood that there was a likelihood that, look, anything can go wrong, but you control as much as you can. And it's not like it's a situation where he goes in this thinking, I'm going to die doing this. It's, I think I can actually pull this one off with a reasonable, and he's a smart guy. He's been, look at where he's been already.
Yeah.
So it's like, there's a controlled nature of that first stunt. And when he's being wheeled up, he realizes I could probably keep going. He understands he's in control.
Yeah.
And the rest of it is like the spot where he goes through the thing wasn't supposed, we all knew that was not supposed to happen. That was another thing that I didn't know, because I don't think it had been specified before, that when he did that choke slam, they were expecting the mesh. They wanted it to be tension, the mesh to slowly erode. And so it's like, oh my God, when are they going to fall through? How is that going to happen? And he didn't specify what the next thing was with like what the plan was as the mesh would give way. But it just completely, broke apart at the seams.
It's because they used twist ties to keep the panels together.
Right. That was the thing. Yeah, you can see them down on the floor.
Yeah. Like, watching it live, I never really paid attention. But after he goes through the cage, you see busted up twist ties around him. Yeah.
It's funny because like you and I, when we shoot hoops, we repaired, the net with twist ties.
And 2 weeks later, those are busted up. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And so that's something that hadn't been anticipated. And that's why that is so gnarly, because it's like, oh, he didn't expect to go through. He didn't expect the chair to go screaming down onto his face. And so then he has to adjust. He comes to, and he's able to finish the match. They do the thumbtack spot, which was, again, having seen thumbtacks so often in wrestling, you forget that was the first time it was presented in the WWE ring. And so it's like, that first Alien movie. It's like, well, yeah, now watching it but at the time, it's like, oh my God, this has never been done before.
Yeah.
And so the match really is revolutionary in that, in several respects. But the I Quit match is the kind of thing where that should have been stopped.
Yeah.
I mean, that 3 chair shots to the head, and then you do the thing. But like 12?
Well, it's interesting.
That always disgusted me.
Yeah. I mean, Foley referenced that. He said he told The Rock, to really lay it in. But then he said something along the lines of, I thought it would be 5, not 11.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And they were zip ties, not twist ties. Twist ties are even more flimsy, but zip ties are pretty flimsy.
Yeah.
So yeah, in Beyond the Mat, I believe Foley mentions about how The Rock didn't even come talk to him after the match.
That. Yeah. I know.
It's too much. It's too much.
It's one of those things I remember even watching live at the time. I don't remember where I was. I might have been in your parents' house. I don't remember.
Yeah, I think so.
But I do remember watching live and thinking, I'm like young and I should be like, I should not care about stuff like that. I should be like, oh man, this is hardcore. But no, I remember even back then I was like,
this is uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable to watch back then.
It was, and it still is, and you can't just think, oh boy, that's messed up. Somebody should have put their foot down there.
I know. You see him Beyond the Mat, he has a giant gash in his head. Foley does from all the chair shots.
It's horrible.
It's bad. It's really bad.
But yeah, I mean, otherwise, in terms of the rest of the majority of the episode was like, oh yeah, it's fun to take a trip down memory lane. Yeah. But I feel like at least with this season, kicking off with this might be because, hey, you know, this is something sexy for nostalgia's sake. A lot of people are going to remember this, and they put together. It's always interesting. I do appreciate, because obviously the majority of these are wrestler centric, personality centric, and so, but every once in a while they'll give us, you know, an incident or a match. You know, like we already mentioned, they had Bash at the Beach, they had the Owen Hart incident. So it is interesting to see, for example, how matches are, you know, anytime when you can find out how matches are put together, who came up with ideas. I'll always eat that stuff up.
Oh yeah,
I always love that stuff.
Or like when Gerald Briscoe, who's the producer of this match, seemed to be completely unaware they were doing the spot off the top of the cage.
Yeah, I'm like, what exactly did you do for this match? Because he's like, wow, that was crazy. You're the producer of the match. He's as surprised as everybody else.
I guess so.
Oh man. So yeah. Anyways, yeah, let us know what you guys thought about this episode in the comments below. And then the next one, I think the Ludwig Borga one might be double the size of this particular review, because man, oh man, there's a lot to unpack with Ludwig Borga, Larson. Anyways, yeah, so that's going to do it. Do us a solid, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.
Goodbye.